us a little bit about healthy eating for the holidays. So I'm just going to say a little something about our speaker. Sister Carol Oxford Yard was born and raised in New York City. She attended and graduated from the public school system from elementary through graduate school. She retired from the New York City Department of Education in 2007 and relocated to Florida. She attended and graduated from the Institute of Culinary Education in 2002 and worked as a cake decorating instructor at Michael's in Palm Coast for 5 years, and at the same time volunteered at the Flagler Library. Since 2008, she has worked as a COP, the Citizen Observers Patrol, for the Flagler County Sheriff's Department and holds the title of Commander. In 2013, Commander Yard attended the Wilton School Master Cake Decorating Program, and in 2015 graduated from the Daytona Beach Pastry and Baking Program. Presently, she has a YouTube channel, check her out, called Chef Carol NYC, where she teaches step-by-step cake decorating and keto lifestyle cooking. And every Wednesday, she does a new recipe, and it's good. Check her out, Chef Carol NYC on YouTube. Commander Yard is the mother of one son named Oliver and one granddaughter named Janai. And she is happily retired. So, and we are glad that she retired to Palm Coast because she has so many gifts that she can share with the body of Christ. Amen? So without further ado, we're going to bring up Commander Carol Oxford Yard. Yes, ma'am.
She's also a member of the Mount Calvary.
Of course, first and foremost.
So happy to be here today in this particular capacity. The last time I was here, I was representing the Sheriff's Office, and I had the Home Safety Program. So, but this is what I love. But just FYI, on your table I left a package about the Sheriff Program. We have had a few people come in from the church, and they are very happily helping to keep Palm Coast safe now. So if you have anybody that you know who needs to get out of the house for a few hours, even if it's yourself, feel free to come on down. Now, there's nothing more I need to say about myself, so I'll go just past the intro. But we are in the holiday season, so this is the season of eating. And then according to the flyer, it says, enjoy food without expanding your waistline. Thank you, Sister Yvette. I'm not taking credit for that. So what do you figure is the one thing that you would do in order to not have your waistline expanded for the holiday? What would be the one thing? It's only one thing. Fast. Fast? Fast. Okay. Cut back on sweets, definitely. Yes. Exercise. Exercise is excellent.
Cut back on salt.
Cut back on salt. Okay. So now, when I tell you what this one thing is, the one thing that you could do with no dieting or anything at all would be to reduce your portion size.
That's it.
Okay? If you were to reduce your portion sizes, you could actually eat the same menu that you're eating right now, and you would find that if you reduce your portion sizes and start drinking more water, that you would actually just lose weight. Now, when I say portion size, what do I mean exactly? So I want to show you an example. In your handout, you'll see a page that says serving size. So I'm going to start with these trusty elements that I'm sure are found in every kitchen. Measuring cups and measuring spoons. Yes? Now when we look at, and one other good thing to have is a scale. Now, when we look at portion size, if the first picture you see is a container of cashews, and I put the weighted amount on the picture, and you'll notice it says 1 ounce. Can everybody see that? Mm-hmm. All right. Now, what I want you to do is look at where it says nutrition facts on the cashew bottle, and it says that a serving is 160 calories, and it tells you that a serving size is 1 ounce. So when we get the container of cashews, what we should do is take a container, measure out that 1 ounce, or use a scale and measure out that 1 ounce, and eat them slowly. So it's not about having a serving of cashews this size. It's about having a serving, if we understand what servings are, would be this size. Now, you don't do this overnight. It is a process, but what you could start is by having a half. And, resigning yourself to the fact that you don't do this for anyone, you do it for yourself. Okay, now let's look at the next item. It's a jar of peanut butter. And if you notice, I put a tablespoon next to the jar of peanut butter. And it says that a tablespoon of peanut butter is 100, or is that 2? 2 tablespoons of peanut butter is 190 calories. Who counts calories here? No, I don't count calories here. But if you know anything about calories, the number of calories you consume compared to the number that you burn is important in that exercise of not expanding your waistline. So you say to yourself, I don't want 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. I just want to go into the jar and smear it out. Now, excuse me? I get a tablespoon. This is a tablespoon. Oh, it's just a different shape. It's a different shape, but yeah, this is my set of tablespoons, teaspoons. Sometimes we get one that looks a little bigger, and for some recipes, I have a pinch, a tad, a smidgen, and a dash. Okay? Because just in case, you look at something and it'll say a dash of, and you say, well, what is a dash? So you go in and you get more than a dash and you throw it in there. Hey, listen, whenever you have an activity, you tend to have all the, accessories that go with it. I am guilty of that. I have every type of cooking accessory you can imagine, but these are part of my cooking requirement, okay? Now, I eat pistachios every day. Every single morning, I have pistachios. Pistachios are 1/4 of a cup. Now, with these pistachios, if you notice, I put on the scale 28 grams. For me, measuring food in grams is a little more accurate than measuring food in ounces, especially baking, and I am primarily a baker. So if you ever had a cake that was too heavy, because maybe the way you measured a cup was that you went in and you did it like this, as opposed to, setting it to grams and then taking this cup and putting it in until it reached the number of grams for a cup. So if you're measuring this way, you probably should stop, because you're putting too much of one ingredient and not enough of another. And if you do that and then it says a teaspoon of baking powder, Well, you already don't have enough baking powder for this cup because you went in and got it this way as opposed to the way. So that's just a nice tidbit I wanted to share with you, okay? Who likes to eat oatmeal? Yes, okay. Now, how do you decide how much oatmeal to eat? Pour it in, okay. So have you ever looked at the side of the oatmeal box? So we're gonna look at the side of the oatmeal box right now. And you'll notice it says serving size, half a cup. So you would measure out this half a cup, and then you would use the appropriate amount of water to make that half a cup of oatmeal. Yes? Oh, well, it's pre-measured. But that's one package, right? You eat one package or two? Two.
But the thing with the instant ones, don't they have more sugar because they put all that
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, processed food, which is what the instant would be, because they added in the cinnamon, the sugar, the apples, you know, all of those things. So, now if you would look at that package of instant, and then look at the nutrition facts, then that would give you a better idea of what that half a cup is giving you. Salad dressing. How many people like to have salad dressing with their salad? Right. Or are you having the salad dressing is the primary, and every piece of salad has to be covered. Every piece. All right. 2 tablespoons of salad dressing. Okay. 2 tablespoons of salad dressing is what the average small bowl.
Small bowl.
Yes. Yes. Now, that doesn't mean because you have the big salad. And what about a soda? I just happened to find a sugar-free soda. This is a ginger beer, and I use that to cook. So if you notice, it says calorie 0. But if you buy a sugar-free soda and it tells you that the calories are 0, those are what they call empty calories. So, you know, it's still, your body is still consuming, but they're not adding in, like, quote unquote fat or something. But sugar is what I call the devil, all right? The devil. I call sugar the devil. Because if you eat healthy, you know, I talk to people about ketogenics. I don't push the program because it's really not for everybody. I went to my doctor first before the whole COVID, and you know the statistics said that the average African American over 60 years old with that was taking more than 2 medications was more inclined to maybe catch this COVID. So I said to my doctor, okay, listen, we can't have this next year, all right? We did the blood work, determined that it would be okay for me to do this. And what he did, he gave me something to help block cholesterol as I was going into it. Because the difference between what a normal diet would be, that's high in sugar and carbs, I eliminate sugar and carbs from my diet, and I burn fat for energy, whereas most people burn sugar and carbs for energy. You can eat healthy food. However, if you combine sugar to it, then the sugar takes and it just creates a total, it just becomes a total waste for you. I still eat sweetened foods, but I eat plant-based sugars. So when I eat vegetables, I have cauliflower, I make it look like mashed potatoes. You know, I'll have cabbage and I'll have a protein. But basically everything on my plate is a protein. So you have to develop this thing of trying to fool your mind into eating what's good for you. And, you know, you make a decision about whether you want a healthier lifestyle or, I know, listen, it's hard to give up sweets. I have figured out ways to, I'm not promoting my website, but please do take a look at it. So what I do is I cook cakes, sweets, chocolates, using plant-based sugars and nut-based flours. So I still get to have the satisfaction of having things that pleased me before, so that I'm not wanting. And every now and then, if I go to dinner with somebody, I might take a French fries just to remind myself, you know, it really is not that good. but you know, that's me and my quirkiness. Any questions on that? Yes.
What are the plant-based sugars?
Okay, plant-based sugars are monk fruit. They have something called allulose. Have you heard of a brand called Swerve? You see it in the supermarket. It's called Swerve, S-W-E-R-V-E. So those are all sugars. Those are all, they're not sugars, they're all sweeteners. Stevia. Everybody knows that word, right? Yes. So there are many different sweeteners. I use them for different things. I don't use just one type of a sweetener. I use one type for baking. I'll use another type for, say for instance, this dessert that I'm going to introduce you to. But to take some of the research out of it, I have a video that tells you about all the different sweeteners and how I use them, so it could save you maybe a little bit of research if you just check it out. Okay? Yes.
I'm a baker.
Yes.
I love the baking giveaway. But my thing is, does regular sugar and the sugar base that you're talking about, how do they?
It's almost 1 for 1.
Oh.
The only sugar that's slightly, the allulose sugar is slightly less sweet than, say for instance, the Swerve, but I get it in brown sugar, powdered sugar, granulated, golden. They make them now in every liquid, everything you could possibly think of. The plant-based sugars are out there, plant-based sweetness. Yes.
What about raw sugar, raw cane?
Are you asking me, is it good?
Yeah, that's because cane, sugar comes from sugar cane.
Exactly.
It's what they do to it that makes it bad.
Well, it's the way it's processed. In other words, if we want to talk about what happens to food, one of the things, Sister, that I was very pleased that you purchased organic cranberries. So when I first learned about organic foods, I used to say, well, I wash my foods with a food wash. And, you know, the chef at the time says, no, that's not good enough. And I'm like, well, why is not good enough? So if we actually think about this, the nutrients for food comes through the roots. So if these pesticides are placed in the ground and it gets fed, then whatever the roots feed through comes up through the vegetable. So if we just take a food wash to wash it off, it doesn't change anything about what's contained in the actual fruit or the food, yeah?
So, no, I asked about the raw sugar.
Raw sugar is still sugar.
But it's not processed.
In other words, it's cane.
It's cane.
It's cane. So it's processed differently, say, than granulated sugar because they don't bleach it, but it's still sugar.
Okay, so,
It's still just as harmful to your body as the granulated sugar or the boron.
what about the agave? I mean, that's what they.
Agave is sugar. It's made from a plant. It's not a plant-based sugar. It's just something that, you know, they say, okay, drink agave because it's better for you. It may be a little better than granulated sugar, but it's still, if I'm a diabetic, so if my whole thing is that I have to avoid sugars and that's the starches, right? Agave would not fill the bill for me because basically it is sugar.
So the plant-based sugars are not sugar?
No, in other words, the plant-based sweeteners, that's why they're not sugars. Think of the stevia is a leaf, and it's a leaf that is processed into a powder to simulate the look of sugar. but it's still, the product itself, unlike cane is processed to become the sugar that we know. The agave is actually a leaf that is processed to become the sweetener. So that's why it's plant-based.
It is plant.
Yes. Okay, so moving on. So one thing you have to do is you have to have a plan. So you think about your life and what fits into your life. How did I start doing mine? Once I made the decision with my doctor to do this, I looked in my cabinet, my pantry, and I looked at everything that had sugar in it. And if you look at everything in your pantry, even your spices, you'll see that there is a certain percentage of sugar in those. Anything that wasn't open, I took it and I donated it to a food bank. And then I gradually started purchasing, as I started doing my baking, which is where I started. So I started buying the nut-based flours and the organic vegetables. It was easier for me to do it because I'm going to cook every day anyway. But they do have other programs that will help you do this. But I enjoy shopping. I enjoy shopping so much that I'll get up when the store opens just so I can go there and look at labels and see what's new. So shopping for me, some people like to shop for clothes. I like to shop for food. So size matters. So have I made it clear why size matters?
Yeah.
Okay, so we go to a restaurant and we have a 12-ounce steak. You know what the perfect size is?
6.
Who said 4? Who said 4? 4 gets it. 4 gets it. Yes. Now, if you buy a 12-ounce, yes. Oh, if you buy a 12-ounce steak, that's literally 3 meals. Right? And depending on how you cook it, So how do we do this? Start with a small plate of food. In my house, I only use 9-inch plates. All right? And when I say use a 9-inch plate, it doesn't mean that you pile it high so that you don't fit something 9-inch plate.
You know all the tricks, don't you?
In other words, there should be some white space on that plate between the vegetables and your meat. So primarily, you should have like 3 vegetables to your protein if you want to start thinking about it. My thing is, I'll tell people, the easiest way for me to say this is that I don't eat white food. The only white food that I eat is cauliflower. So how would I define white food? White bread, white flour, white sugar, rice, yes. So I don't eat any grains. Nobody has to be quite as drastic as I am about this, but it's where you start.
Well, I got a question.
Yes.
If you love bread, what kind of bread do you suggest?
Well, if you love bread, you can make bread out of almond flour.
Well, suppose you don't bake.
They actually sell breads in the store now. I noticed that in my travels, it's become where you go to a restaurant. So, you see you're dining with somebody who can eat everything they want. But they now have little, maybe 2 or 3 items on the menu for me that says ketogenic that I can actually eat. But basically, I just know to eat proteins. I eat vegetables and I eat protein. So going out is really not a problem. If you like bread, they have ketogenic breads, but I would suggest that you bake your bread. Okay, one of the other things you want to do is eat slowly. So, during the holidays, we are so happy to have all the things that we love. All of those, macaroni and cheese and mashed potatoes and rice and peas, and, so these are all the things that we love. But we have to learn how to do them in moderation. Choose one. Don't have potato salad, mashed potatoes, right?
Mac and cheese.
And mac and cheese. All like that. Let's not forget the dressing. Let's not forget the dressing, right? So I understand it's much more popular to eat sides during the holiday, even than it is to eat, the protein segment. I'm guilty of that. Am I alone? So the next thing I'm saying is eat slowly. And after you finish the first plate, don't go run and get the second plate. Wait, give it a minute or so and let it kind of sink in and go to our brain and say, okay, we had enough because we want dessert. So it's a matter of discipline. Avoid alcohol. If you're gonna have alcohol, then you have to have a little food with it. And I'm going to get into a conversation about water and food in just a few minutes. But we know that alcohol makes us retain water, yes? When I say cut back on carbs, so if you know you want that favorite cake that somebody makes, then try not to have all those things I just talked about. Try not to have the potatoes and the mashed potatoes and the macaroni and cheese. Cut back on 2 of those because you want to have a slice of cake. Now, how many of us on the holiday we don't eat until dinner time? I'm saving myself. Right? Don't save yourself. Eat small meals. So that by the time you get there, you're not so hungry that you just start, wolfing it down. Now, let's talk about water for a minute. Okay. Water is the elixir of life. Who grew up in the country here? Anybody? Anybody? Yes. How did you sterilize water?
Oh, I wasn't that far back in the country.
I know. I want somebody to goes way back. Yeah.
My grandma did. All I knew is we had water delivered in a tank outside the house.
Okay, yeah, potable water.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then we just said if she wanted to make coffee or something like that, she might boil the water for that. But as far as I can remember, drinking the water, just water, put it in a bucket, and you got glasses of water.
Okay. You had a well, the pump? And what did you do when the water came out? Okay. Now, okay, I've questioned a few people about this, and I've gotten a couple of stories that I can't verify, but one I know to be true, one I think is kind of crazy. But I'll go tell you the crazy one first. So you have a pot of water. You put the frog in the water. Hot water. So the frog in the hot water will jump right out of the water. Okay? Because it's hot. Now, if you take the frog and put him in regular water, and then you slowly turn up the heat, the frog keeps adjusting to the heat. So I said, so what happens to the frog? He said, the frog dies. I said, okay, that's not a good way to know whether or not water is clean. No. But people who have lived where they actually had to pump the water, what they tell me they do is they boil the water, and then after they boil the water, they let the water settle, and then they take the water and pour it off at the top. Now, I actually found a recipe. You know how sometimes people joke and say, she doesn't even know how to boil water. There's a recipe for water. So what they say is, if you happen to live someplace where your tap water is cloudy, you let it run through a clean cloth, a paper towel, or a coffee filter to help remove contaminants. And if you don't have any of those things, then just let the water settle. Then you take the clear water, put it in a pot, bring the water to a rolling boil for at least a minute or 3 minutes, and then you let the water cool. So how many times do we hear, well, it doesn't happen that often in Palm Coast, but every now and then they'll say a boiled water alert. A boiled water alert suggests that you need to boil the water for at least 3 minutes, then let that water cool, and then put it in a clean container. So there's a recipe for boiling water. And water boils at what temperature? No. No. Anybody?
260.
What?
265.
No.
Water boils at 212 degrees.
Well,
Okay. If you live in a place with a higher elevation, it'll be a little bit more, but, you know, basically here, 212 degrees. Okay. Now, what does water do for us? It is the elixir of life, but what does it do? How do we know how much water is enough? I see people walking around with gallons, you know, under their arms, you know, this is the amount of water that they're going to drink in a day. Some scientists tell us drink 8 glasses of water a day.
8 ounces.
8 ounce glasses of water. Do you know that you can drink too much water?
Yes.
And you know what happens when you drink too much water? Bloated. Well, you know why you get bloated? Because all the bread and carbs in your stomach absorbs all that moisture, and that's why you get bloated, okay? Now, so how do we know? One of the easiest ways I can tell you whether to know if you're hydrated or dehydrated is look at the color of your urine, okay? It should be the color of light lemonade.
the color of what?
Light lemonade,
Yes.
okay? Or clear, yeah.
Unless you take that.
Now, if you take vitamins, you have to drink a little more water, but you can still get to that point of the clear or light lemonade water. So if
it
you,
has a strong smell, it tells you that you need to drink more water.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, the water cleanses our bodies so that, say for instance, if you're diabetic, if you have heart issues, you know, hypertension, if, you know, some illnesses can be abated by drinking water. A person who has headaches a lot should drink more water. And I think sometimes, you know, especially if we're out and about, we don't want to drink a lot of water because, you know, you have to constantly find the bathroom. But if you just happen to be home, now what I do, you see that container on the table right there with the straw sticking out? Okay, that's 22 ounces. I try to do 3 of those a day. And I don't time myself to do it. I just keep it handy and I sip on it throughout the day. And somewhere during the day, I'm also drinking tea, and that adds water into my system. The fruits, like strawberries, cucumbers, and broccoli, they all add water into your system. There's a lot of, if you Google how much water should I drink, you'll get over 700,000 responses. So 700,000 people saying, this is why you should, this is why you shouldn't. You have to really individualize your need for water. You know, water feeds our brain. So if some of us get a little crazy, it might be because, our brains are not hydrated properly. So, you know, that's something to think about. If somebody's around you acting a little crazy, tell them to just, you know, drink some water.
Individual signs, like each person is different, like a snowflake. So when I don't get enough water, I notice my lips get very, very charred or chapped or dry.
Okay.
Then that tells me that I'm not getting it. I have to drink more water.
Okay.
The other thing is that the culture we live in doesn't promote us to drink water. They want us on their sodas and their juices. So, you know, your television ads are all letting us think that we should be drinking anything but water. And it always occurred to me that the only thing dogs drink and animals drink is water.
That is why you have to take control of what happens to your body. Now, I was reading that mineral water may even be better for us than regular water because then it adds certain amounts of nutrients into our bodies. I have to supplement my water drinking with electrolytes. I use electrolytes in a powdered form. I don't buy those drinks. What is it called?
In the store brand, you don't buy?
Yeah, I don't buy those. I use something called Dr. Berg's And I use that, and it kind of helps. Because, you know, when I don't have enough water in my system, I get leg cramps. And, you know, big time. Yeah, that stuff helps me with that. And, you know, you need a certain amount of potassium and sodium in your body. And see, when you drink too much water, you wash some of those things out of your system.
Also medication.
The name of the electrolytes.
Oh, Dr. Berg's. Dr. Berg's. And not only that, if we drink too much water, it affects our digestive system. So when you have people who talk about having acid reflux, you know, a lot of times it's because, you know, they're drinking so much water and they're drinking it so fast that when it gets here in their digestive system, it's not working properly because basically it's flooded. All right? So, is there, yes, I'm sorry.
What water does to your kidney?
Excuse me?
What the water does to your kidney?
Well, it all is going to depend. Oh, let me give a qualifier by saying I'm a chef, not a nutritionist. So don't say that Carol said that. But the water to help to flush out your kidneys, but it also does that for all parts of our body. So when our brain tells us, hey, I'm thirsty, well, that's one sign. One sign you know is that when your lips get dry. If we drink enough water, it actually affects the condition of our skin. You know, our skin is not nearly as dry. But it's going to be different for you, and it's going to be different for you, and it's going to be different for me. The signs are going to be different. That's why I'm saying, is there a hard and fast rule about how much water you should drink? Average 2 liters a day, but it may be different for you. There is no hard, fast rule. It's not based on size, it's not based on your height, and it's not based on your weight. It's individual to you. All right?
Excuse me.
Yes.
You said the electrolytes you use, Dr. Burke, B-U-R-K-S?
B-E-R-G-S.
Oh, B-E-R-G-S.
So one of the things you should try to do is, you know, as I was saying, drink your liquids slowly. If you want to drink water while you eat, try to drink most of it like a half an hour before or half an hour after. If you need water, just make small sips of water while you're eating. And everybody cannot drink ice cold water. So, you know, sometimes it's better to just have your water at room temperature. And only because I work in restaurants, I'm just going to tell you this, you don't have to take it to heart. But one of the things you don't want to do in the restaurant is when they say, do you want lemon in your water? Don't take it.
I know.
Okay. Nobody, when I worked in the restaurant, I was the only one back there washing food. Okay. Nobody washes lemons. All right? No, you know, when they cut through that core, whatever they cut through comes straight through from the skin to the lemons, into the lemons. So I know some people love it because, you know, I go out with people and they always have to have lemon. And I keep that to myself because I think everybody should enjoy their food. But I'm just telling you, as a group here today, that is the one thing you don't want to have. You know, bring a little squeeze in your purse. And with you know, I have one that I use called Mio. So when I go out, I get unsweetened tea, and I put the little squeeze of Mio lemonade into my drink. So now my drink is sweetened and it has a little lemon in it.
That's a good tip, because I always ask for lemon.
Okay, so this former restaurant girl is telling you. Now, one of the things I did want to show you, there's just a couple of recipes I added into the package. One is a low-carb cornbread stuffing. So I still make stuffing, I still make cornbread, but I make it out of a different flour. I didn't put the cornbread recipe here. I just put the stuffing recipe here. If you were interested in knowing that, all you have to do is Google low-carb cornbread. I also put here green beans. How many people use an Instant Pot? An Instant Pot. Instant Pot pressure cooker? Anybody? I love my Instant Pot. I love it. I can make collard greens any day of the week because in that Instant Pot, they will cook in 24 minutes. Okay? So then you don't have to let them cook for hours and hours on the stove, you know.
Is that the same as a pressure cooker?
It is a pressure cooker. It is a pressure cooker. But it's a little friendlier though. It won't explode. Instant pot. How many people use an air fryer? Oh, very good. You don't use an air fryer? I use mine every single day. Every single day. I love it.
When I was a young girl and I would go to my aunt's house, they always had a pot of greens cooked.
Sure.
The whole house smelled like greens. They were apartments, but there was always this big pot of greens.
Yes.
And I never understood.
Because they were basically braising the greens, so they let them cook for at least 2 hours or so.
Simmering.
But
They call it simmering.
simmering. But like I'm saying, when I use my instant pot for every vegetable imagined. I can cook string beans in 2 minutes. I can cook 2 minutes after the pot reaches pressure.
Wow.
Cabbage in about 2 minutes. And like I said, collard greens in 24 minutes. You know, you can't really beat that. On my site, the most popular recipe on my site is collard greens.
What you put in your collard green?
I add,
Turkey?
I don't know, the collard greens I cook, everybody hold your seat, are vegan collard greens, okay? But I use seasonings in them that make them taste as if they had a meat. Yeah, okay? Now, let me introduce you to dessert today. So the recipe for this dessert, Sister Yvette,
Yes,
would you do the honors of passing me out? So what I'm going to show you very quickly, it's in this, the last page. This is what is called a deconstructed dessert. So if you ever go to a restaurant and you see something that says deconstructed apple pie, what they're going to do is have the crust here, they'll have the apples here, and they'll have the whipped cream or whatever. So this is a deconstructed cheesecake. So instead of a graham cracker crust, I'm giving you a graham cracker. And I'm giving you, because the cranberries are basically the seasoned fruit right now, so I made a cranberry sauce to go on the top. And the cheesecake is made with the plant-based sugars that I talked about, and it's also made with cream cheese and sour cream. What's the question? What is it? Monk fruit. Monk fruit. That's what I've been talking about.
Where do you get that?
Oh, you get that in any supermarket now. Because to expedite time, this right here contains my whipping cream and the sour cream, because I don't have a table. What I'm going to do now, this is how easy it is. The recipe that I gave you says for one. Well, who wants one dessert? Make two. Okay. So this recipe is double. So in here is actually my sour cream and my whipping cream. This is what the plant-based sugar looks like. This is the powdered sugar. It looks just like regular powdered sugar, right? Keep in mind that I've doubled everything that's on your sheet. So I'm just going to pour this in. And I've measured off. You know, the cream cheese comes in 8-ounce packages. So I just cut this at the 4 ounce. If I were measuring this at home, I would actually use the scale for the other ingredients, just to make sure. So I'm going to just put this in here. So this is if you wanted a little cheesecake without using a water bath and, you know, baking. Okay, so all my ingredients are in here. I'm gonna find an outlet over here. So while you enjoy that, I'm gonna whip this out.
There's one on the ledge right there. You need to put it in.
So far you don't need much, right? And you just whip that until it's smooth. I have my little shooter, I call them shooters. And my scale, so my scale is at 0 right now. And each one of your cups is 2 ounces, so nobody has any more than the other. It might have just gone in there differently. So this is what I mean. Okay. So this is portion control. Now after you ate that whole meal, I'm willing to bet that what you're having there is going to be enough. You won't say to yourself, I could have used a little bit more. Okay, I don't have a spoon, so we're gonna use this one. Anybody don't like it? Okay, it could be a sweeter, and guess what? You can add a little more sweetener. Because right now, I'm gonna let you try this one. This one is sweeter. So how sweet it is, it just depends on how much extra sweetening you decide to add to it. So basically, is there anybody that didn't like cranberries? Because I did have some that didn't have cranberries on. So, any questions on what we talked about today?
Is your website at the bottom and fine print?
No, it's on the announcement. I'll give you a business card.
Okay.
So thank you very much for allowing me to be here today. We got some extras here.